let's try to understand that how we would be importing data into Excel, and then how those data would be handled and accessed into the Excel files. So if you see on my screen that data can be connected and gathered from different sources from the data tab which is available. So in the data tab, there is option related to gather data from different sources, right? From files to different databases or Azure systems or other different sources of data. Or if you want to combine the different tables which are being fetched, that also operation is available to us. So let's see in our Excel that how this operations or how this task would be available to us in terms of our data. So when I go into my Excel file, this is the Excel file which we open a blank workbook which we were using till now. So I go into the data tab over here. And then if you can see, there are options available to me such as get data, get from text or CSV, from web, or from the table range. And when you click on this, there are more options available to me that from files. So what kind of files do I have in order to fetch the data? Let's say from databases. So what kind of databases can be helpful for me in terms of loading the data for the same Azure systems? And there are different other sources such as if I want from a table range, from websites, from different online connectivity modes. And then there is an option of combining the data or combining the tables, which you can see. So initially, let's go from file and let's see from an Excel workbook, which I have. Let's say I have this workbook known as practice data, and you can see the file is what an Excel file, and I do an import over here. When I do an import, a tab would be available to me, and this tab is nothing but a Power Query tab. Now, what is a Power Query tab? Power Query is an option available into Excel, very particularly used in Power BIs in terms of taking the data, transforming it, means making manipulations or changes in the same, and then proceeding further with what kind of data you have. So let's say I have this, and when you select this, the multiple select items is off. Let me on it off over here, and you can see the table which I have, and there is sheet 1, which is related to basic functions, sheet 2, which is related to date related functions, sheet 3, which is an employee data, sheet 4, like functions with if, then there are logical functions, then there are text functions. If you can see, all sheets information is available to me. So this information, if I want to gather, let's say I take only basic functions wala data, and I want this information to be available with me. So there are two options. One is known as load and another known as transform. Now, when you do load, what is the meaning of load? You're fetching the data from different sources and loading into your system, loading into your Excels in order to be accessed or analyzed further. Or you have a transform button over here. Now, what is the meaning of transform? Now, when you go on transform, it will definitely open a Power Query tab for you, which is helping to make those transformations. Now, what kind of transformations would we make? Transformations would be with related to changing the values, doing certain elements or changing certain rows, replacing a data from the Power Query editor. So what we have got here, it's a Power Query editor. If you can see over here, if I don't want to do anything, and you can see there is column 1, column 2, column 3 being created where there is null values, and I don't want this columns to be available within my table. What I can simply do is I can select on it shift and an right arrow key, which I will press it, and I'll select all of them. I've kept it, and I can right click and I can say remove columns. So those columns are being removed from my data. And when that removal has happened, you can see a step has been added over here, which is removal of columns. So columns have been removed. I can rename the steps, that how many columns I have removed. So I can right click and there is a button of rename. So let's say I say that I have removed 5 columns, 6 columns, or removed null columns. So I can mention that this step is there and clicked it. When I do Control Z is not applicable into Power Queries. Whatever changes you do, they are being tracked down into steps. Let's say before removing the column, that was a change data type. And when I see this, you can see the null values column still exist. When I go on this step, you can see the null value columns have been removed. So whatever task I have done, they have been traced down over here as a step. Once after those changes are made, I want to load it. So there is an option of close and load to, and so on. So let's say I want close and load. So you can see a sheet has been added to me over here. So I have gathered data from a different Excel sheet which is available to me. So these are connections, these are queries which are being made. So it's possible to gather data from different sources which are available to us. So this is how we can see that our data could be imported from a different file. Now we can also see a CSV file. Let's say this was an employees file, which is a CSV, and you can see the extension over here is a text file. If I go on import and then see, the options are totally different. You can see a comma delimited. So it's a CSV. So by default, it's a comma delimited files. How many displays? So over here, display maximum rows as 200 is what it can show. And this is the information which is available to me. If I directly load it, I don't transform it, I directly load it. So what happened? You can see a new sheet being created named as employees. There was one sheet named as basic function, and you can see one other sheet which is named as employees. And this employees information has been fetched and gathered over here. So this is how we can use data tab and an option of import in order to get and transform data. You can see the name of the group, ribbon group, which is given, that is get and transform data, that is fetch the data from the different sources and transform it, that is make the changes, query it according to the requirements and changes which are being made. So this is how we gather the data, import the data into our Excel. Now we will study further in terms of further use cases of the same, but this is just a basic implementation of how a data would be fetched with the help of data tab, where the data is available into different files.
Like this video, subscribe to our channel and comment on the concept you want to learn next.